Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very good. The reason I asked you to listen and repeat is many of you know this, most of you know this, a few of you may not know it well. So it's important that we learn how to chant it properly. After a class or two, we'll recite this together, of course. So, very nice to have you back as we continue our study of the Isha Upanishad. In our first class, we gave a proper introduction. This kind of study requires a proper introduction. And after the introduction, we fairly thoroughly went through this opening prayer. As I mentioned, this particular prayer is the Shanti mantra associated with the Isha Upanishad. So whenever the Isha Upanishad is studied, this prayer is recited first. And then at the conclusion of our first class, we finally made it to the beginning of the first mantra, and we explained a little bit of the first line of the first mantra, but that wasn't really a proper explanation, so we'll return there tonight and resume our study. So let's, there are a couple of other notes I had here. Good. Is anyone coming for the first time today? Many of you. Good. You missed a fairly important introduction. Could I recommend you go to our website and you'll find the audio on the website. These classes really require continuity, and I know that many of you have some demands on your life which take you away from New Jersey or just make it impossible for you to attend. That's one of the reasons we put our audios on the website, and with the help of some volunteers here, they're usually up on the website after only a few days after the class, so that you can very easily listen to that class that you've missed prior to the next class. So I highly suggested. In fact, I want to thank Suryakant, who's sitting here in front, who it's his... are these turned on, I should ask? Yeah. So he's the one in charge of uploading these to our website. Our web designers have created some nice tools that make it convenient to do so. So please make use of that. If you miss a class, you will lose the continuity. And for text like this, it basically won't work without that continuity. Also, I'll mention that the text is on the website. It's probably helpful to take notes in a class like this. If you print out your own copy of the text, then you can take notes on here. And it's the same as the slides that we have here. So it's completely. It's also on our website. You just print it out. I would suggest that you do so. Okay. Good. And with those comments, we can resume our study with the first mantra. I mentioned that this is a Samhita Upanishad, so since it has Vedic swaras, we'll recite with those Vedic swaras. If you see me going back and forth between books, this one has Shankara's commentary, this one has the swaras. They don't come in the same book, so I need the swaras. Repeat after me, please. Om Isha Vasyam, Om Isha Vasyam, Idagam Sarvam, Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagata, Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagata, Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita, Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita, Magradha Kasya Swidhanam, Magradha Kasya Swidhanam. Very good. And we began with the first opening words. Obviously, the name of the Upanishad is derived from the very first word or words. The Upanishad can alternately be called Isha Upanishad. By the way, when the two words are combined, Isha and Upanishad, it can be written Ishopanishad, following rules of Sanskrit grammar. Alternatively, it can be called Ishavasya Upanishad, using the first two words. And again, Ishavasya and Upanishad can also be run together, giving you Ishavasyopanishad. So when you see all these various titles, now you know that they're all referring to the one and same text. The meaning of this opening line is something very odd. In the introduction, we said that this Upanishad, like most Upanishads, highly poetic in its nature. And poets have a way of using odd words. Vasyam, in this context, is an exceedingly odd word to use in this context. Let's get the general meaning. Isha vasyam idam sarvam, all this. All this what? Idam sarvam jagat, this entire world, this entire universe. Jagatyam, with everything that moves, everything in this universe. This entire universe, vasyam, literally, should be covered. That's the literal meaning of vasyam. Should be covered. Isha, by Ishvara, by God. This entire universe, everything in the universe, should be covered by God. Isha, by Ishvara. And I'm sure to your ears, as it does to mine, that expression should be covered sounds odd. You can probably get the sense of it without too much difficulty. And when we discussed this verse very briefly at the end of the last class, we discussed how, according to, and this is based on the introduction again, those of you who missed the first class, you'll need to know what is... oh, am I blanking out here? Sorry. Vivartavada. So we discussed Parinamavada. Do you know, it went out of my head that quickly? What did I say? Yeah, Vivartavada. I don't know what's going on in my mind tonight. All right. Vivartavada. We started, of course, with Satkaryavada, Asatkaryavada. Those details are not necessary. Vivartavada is what Vedanta is all about. And we discussed that in the introduction. Vivartavada states that the universe is non-separate from its creator. Just as your dream world is non-separate from you, the creator of your dream world, in the same way this universe is non-separate from its creator, non-separate because it is a projection. Just as your dream world is a projection of your own consciousness, in the same way this universe is understood in Advaita Vedanta as a projection. Based on that, and this was we saw that very much in the opening prayer, Purnamada, Purnamidam. I don't want to go through all of that again this evening. But if we understand that the creation is non-separate from its creator. By the way, this is one of the key teachings in the Hindu tradition. One of the main teachings that sets Hinduism apart from biblical traditions. Just to reflect on this very briefly, you know that in the biblical traditions, creator and creation are utterly separate. Not only are they physically separate, they're spiritually separate. Spiritually separate in this sense. God is good. This is biblical theology. God is good. Everything else is not so good. Honestly, this is biblical theology. The world is corrupt. The world is evil. You're part of the world. You are evil and corrupt. That's why you're in desperate need of salvation. This is straightforward biblical theology. It's not only a physical division between creator and creation, but it's a spiritual division between the perfection of the creator and the utter imperfection of creation. This, of course, is a vision of some prophets of the Middle East, and it's utterly unlike what the ancient rishis discovered and taught. What they discovered and taught is one creator, one Ishvara, from whom the entire universe is projected as though a dream. This world is not a dream. Advaita Vedanta does not teach that the world is a dream. This is a drishtanta, it's a metaphor meant to help us understand the relationship between the world and its creator. So the metaphor is just as you are the source of your dream creation, a dream creation which is projected by you and remains non-separate from you. In the same way, we understand, according to the teachings of the rishis, this universe is a projection of Ishvara, a projection which comes from Ishvara but remains non-separate from Ishvara. Now, that non-separation between creator and creation, between Ishvara and Jagat, that's one meaning you can certainly get from Vasyam, should be covered. This entire universe, everything that exists, should be covered by Ishvara, should be covered in the sense of should be included within Ishvara, should be under the umbrella, as it were, of what is Ishvara. So the sense of covering could be understood in that way. Ishvara covers in a sense of encompasses all that exists in the universe. But that's not quite what the verse says. Vasyam is a potential participle. It's actually telling you what to do. That's why I translated it very literally, should be covered. Or to put it more specifically, you should cover, I'll paraphrase that first line, you should cover the entire universe with Ishvara. What in the world does that mean? You should cover. The only way to explain it nicely is to follow the commentary of Sri Shankara. I'll spare you most of the Sanskrit here. But he gives a very strange drishtanta, very interesting. I guess it's just not something we would experience. His drishtanta, his metaphor, is based on moldy sandalwood. That's what he says. Suppose you have some chandana or agaru, which is sambandhaja kledadi. It's become kleda. It's become wet. Suppose you have some sandalwood that's become wet and moldy. When sandalwood smells so nice, but when it's wet and moldy, it stinks. So this beautiful, fragrant sandalwood, having become wet and moldy, it stinks. Now the swarupa, the fundamental nature of that sandalwood, is that beautiful fragrance. But you don't smell that beautiful fragrance when it's become wet and moldy. All you smell is the stink. Sri Shankara says, Aupadikam dauragandhyam. He says that stink, dauragandhyam, is aupadikam. It's due to the presence of upadhi. And here we go with some of the most fundamental teachings of Vedanta. Due to the presence of an upadhi, and I'll define the word in just a few moments, due to the presence of an upadhi, fragrant sandalwood stinks. So an upadhi from that expression is something that causes one thing to appear as something which it's not. The classic example, let me get my prop here. We want to take a few minutes to understand this concept of upadhi. There's no one English word that really, upadhi defies translation. The scholarly translation ends up being two words, and the two words are almost unintelligible. Yeah. Is that very clear? A conditioning adjunct? I'm not sure what term is less clear. Upadhi or limit conditioning adjunct. Adjunct means something additional that conditions, that causes an apparent change. The example given in so many scriptures is to hold a flower next to a crystal. I don't have a flower, so I use this cloth. So what you see right now is an orange crystal. It's not orange. You know that. You saw me handling it before. You know it's not orange, but it certainly appears orange. The clear crystal appears as something which it is not due to the presence of an upadhi, conditioning adjunct. In this case, the conditioning adjunct is the cloth. In the presence of the upadhi, conditioning adjunct, a clear crystal appears colored. Now you understand a little bit of what upadhi. So limiting adjunct means it's separate, it is added, and its presence. In the presence of an upadhi, something appears as what it's not. That's about the most concise definition of upadhi I can give you. And upadhi is that in whose presence something appears as what it's not. That's a good definition. And upadhi is that in whose presence something appears as what it's not. Now that you know what upadhi is, now we can go back to why does Shankara call that stink? Aupadikam, which means due to an upadhi. Shankara calls the stink aupadikam because it's due to something external, in this case water and mold, which make that sandalwood stink. So the water and mold is that which creates the stink. Since the stink is due to an upadhi, the stink is aupadikam, which literally means due to an upadhi. Now, the significance of this, watch very carefully. Stink is not natural to sandalwood. Fragrance is natural to sandalwood. You could say that the swarupa, the essential nature of sandalwood, is to be fragrant. In the presence of that water and mold and the resultant stink, the fundamental nature of sandalwood cannot be recognized. It's present, but you cannot recognize the fragrance in the presence of the stink. So what Shankara says in his commentary, he says, suppose you take that piece of sandalwood and you rub it. In fact, you rub it generally on a stone. That's how you make sandalwood paste. Of course, not in modern times. We don't. I don't know, do you do that every day? Some people do. It's nice. You take that wood and you rub it on the stone. You get the powder, you make the paste. Nice. All right. That rubbing would rub away that moldy bit and would reveal the dry, fragrant wood below. And what Shankara says is once you reveal the Swarupa, that fragrance, and this is Shankara really trying hard to explain the word Vasya. So he says that Vasya is a word that can be used with fragrances. In fact, Vas, I think, if I remember right, Vas is a Sanskrit root for to perfume, to create a fragrance, to send forth a fragrance, I believe is Vas. So here, of course, the word here is not Vas, but Vyas. Vasya, as a present participle. As the potential participle, excuse me. So Vasya should be covered, should be perfumed or fragranced, if we can make up some words. Here's how Shankara understood it. When you rub the sandalwood, you reveal the natural fragrance. The natural fragrance covers over everything. This stink goes away. So this is Shankara's reaching a little bit here to try to make the metaphor work. But he says, what he means is when you reveal the Swarupa, when you reveal the fundamental nature of the sandalwood, it covers what was aupadikam. It covers the stink, the fragrant smell of sandalwood covers the stink. This is how Shankara explains it. Now, with his explanation in mind, let's return to that word and that line and see it with regard to Ishvara. Now we're going to get a second meaning, a different meaning. Remember, it's a command. Vasyam, you should cover. What are we supposed to do? So by revealing this, by removing the upadhi, by removing the moldy, wet part, the Swarupa, the fundamental nature of that sandalwood is revealed. Watch this. By removing the upadhi, which is present in our experience, which is present in the world, by removing the upadhi with regard to Jagat, the universe, by removing that upadhi, the Swarupa is revealed. By removing the cloth, the clear crystal is removed. Now, this is a little abstract, so let me put it up here. Suppose we understand. Actually, there's no simple way. I can't say simple way. There's no easy way to show this except by going to the fundamental teachings of Vedanta. What we can understand is that this world appears as what it is due to pure existence, consciousness, without boundary, without limit. We talked about that with the Purnamidam prayer, Brahman. Notice I didn't use the word Ishvara here. I didn't. Brahman is a reality because of which even Ishvara exists. Ishvara, we understand, is creator, sustainer, destroyer. Here we're talking at a more fundamental level. Brahman, we define Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Satyam, pure existence. Jnanam, pure knowledge. Anantam, limitless existence, limitless knowledge. The intelligent stuff because of which everything exists. That's Brahman. The intelligent, limitless stuff. Stuff means satya. The intelligent, limitless stuff because of which everything exists, we'll call that Brahman. Just as this clear crystal in the presence of an upadhi appears as something what it is not, in the same way Brahman in the presence of an upadhi, appears as something which it's not. What is that upadhi? We could say, in one sense, we could use this wonderful word, Maya, or how about in a more simple way? Because this will get very philosophical. Nama Rupa, name and form. Nama Rupa, name and form, can be understood as an upadhi. In the presence of the upadhi of Nama Rupa, or if you want to be more Vedantic, in the presence of an upadhi that we name Maya, Maya is in this case a technical term, in the presence of that upadhi, Brahman, which is pure existence, pure consciousness without boundary, appears not only as Jagat, but as Ishvara as well. Of course, Jagat being non-separate from Ishvara, the world being non-separate from Ishvara, we can take these two terms together. Now, this is some very... I hesitate to use the word hardcore Vedanta because hardcore is used for the wrong things. But what I mean by hardcore is very profound and concise truths of Vedanta. Many of you attended our Vedanta classes from last year where we saw the Advaitic works of Sri Shankara. And we studied all this quite thoroughly at that time. What we want to do now, though, is understand what in the world is the Rishi telling us to do. He's telling us to cover the world with Ishvara. Shankara tells us that the way you do that is by removing the upadhi so that the true nature can cover everything. If you remove the upadhi, you remove Maya, you remove Nama Rupa, what you're left with is the fundamental truth because of which everything and anything exists. This is where Vedanta becomes purely philosophical. And I'm making this point because I'm not a philosopher, you're not philosophers, we're not here to study philosophy. But the Rishi here has a very profound vision. And if it were easy to understand, we wouldn't have to go through all of this. But if you really want to understand what that Rishi is trying to tell us to do, this is what he's trying to tell us to do as explained by Sri Shankara. The way you cover the universe with Ishvara is to remove the upadhi, which prevents us from seeing Ishvara's presence here. Now we'll get a little bit more concrete. Everything, sarvam kalvidam brahma, everything that exists is a manifestation of that ultimate reality, which means this pen is a manifestation. Well, let us say, just to stay with the verse, let's say this pen is a manifestation of Ishvara. Just to stay with our verse a little bit more closely. And I'm deliberately confusing the terms Ishvara and Brahman, but that's, if the Rishi can do it, so can we. We're taking it a little looser, a little more poetically, so we can try to get the vision of the Rishi. Here we go. Everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. This pen is a manifestation of Ishvara. The Rishi says you should cover everything with Ishvara. You should cover this pen with Ishvara, which means you should recognize this pen as Ishvara. Do you see Ishvara? You see a pen. What will it take to recognize Ishvara in this pen? I'll help you. What will it take to recognize Ishvara in the form of this pen? Well, form, as we just explained, is nupadhi. Shankara, with his example of the sandalwood, said, you remove the upadhi, and what's left is the truth. Watch this. If we could remove penness from this pen, what would remain is the truth because of which the pen exists, which is Ishvara. Now, that may sound a little far out, as they say, but this is the vision of the Rishi. Everything in the world, idam sarvam jagat, including this pen, everything should be covered by Ishvara, means should be recognized as a manifestation of Ishvara. How will you recognize this pen as a manifestation of Ishvara? Well, Shankara says, easy. Shankara can say easy. Easy. Just remove the upadhi. What do you have to do to see that it's a clear crystal? Easy. Just remove the orange cloth. What do you have to do to see Ishvara in the form of this pen? Easy. Just remove nama rupa. Just remove the name pen and remove the form of pen. When you remove the name and form, all that remains is Ishvara. This is what Shankara is. This is how Shankara is leading us to understand what the Rishi means by vasyam, should be covered. And by the way, this applies at two levels. This applies with regard to the world, also applies with regard to our individual existence. So far we're looking at Jagat, the entire universe. The entire universe is a result of name and form. If we take the entire universe and subtract off name and form, well, that's what the equation here is about. If you subtract name and form, you end up with the essential existence because of which the universe exists. That applies here too. Suppose we take, just as a concrete example, we take Swami Tadatmananda, subtract off the name, Swami Tadatmananda, that's the easy part. The hard part, though, is subtracting the form, Swami Tadatmananda. If you could conceptually remove name and form, or I should put it in first person, when I remove name and form. By the way, it's not hard to do in meditation. In meditation, you have an opportunity to go beyond your concept of yourself as who you are. That is to say that you can drop your name. When you're in deep meditation, do you remember your name? Name is gone. Not only name, but if you're meditating nicely, even your existence as a human being goes away. So in meditation, you have an interesting time, you have a nice opportunity to temporarily drop the name and form because of which you exist as an individual being. And when the nama and rupa are temporarily dropped in meditation, what's left? Pure consciousness, pure existence, without limit, without boundary. What's left is Satchidananda Atma, which is non-different from Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. This is the bottom line of Vedanta. This is Mahavakya, Tat Tvamasi. From the world, you remove, even from Ishvara. Let's take it from that standpoint, then we can move on. One more time with this, just to show you this idea of upadhi. And we're just going to turn it around a little bit. I'm not sure if this will make it easier or harder, but we'll see what happens. What is Ishvara? Ishvara is, and this is one of the things that we saw, one of the concluding teachings we saw last spring as we were concluding our Vedanta class. Brahman plus, I'm going to use this word, Ishvara is Brahman with an upadhi. What kind of upadhi? How about the name, nama and rupa? What kind of nama? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. What kind of rupa? Creator, sustainer, destroyer. So we could say that Brahman, with the capacity to create, sustain, destroy, this is a capacity, and as a capacity, it's an adjunct that conditions Brahman. So Brahman, in the presence of this adjunct, the nama and rupa of being creator, sustainer, destroyer, that is what we mean by Ishvara. So Ishvara exists due to the upadhi of the capacity for creation, sustenance, and destruction. And this is the other part we want to show. Jiva, individual being, you and me, we exist as Atma, Satchidananda Atma, consciousness, unborn, uncreated, unchanging, etc. Consciousness, but with an upadhi. What kind of upadhi are we talking about? Well, you're looking at one. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. The physical body, the subtle body, the so-called causal body. So with these various bodies, Sharira, this accounts for Jiva. So Ishvara, God, is understood as pure existence and consciousness without limit, with an upadhi, the upadhi being the capacity to create, sustain, destroy. You and I, as jivas, as individual beings, we exist. Why? Because we are conscious beings, uncreated conscious beings, and we exist in the presence of our own upadhis. Our upadhis are the physical body and subtle body, for example. But now, what does it mean, vasyam? And we can finish this now. Shankara says, how do you cover? How do you cover the stink? Or how do you cover sandalwood with fragrance? That's really the correct way of interpreting Shankara. How do you cover the stinky sandalwood with the fragrance of sandalwood? And Shankara says, easy. Remove the upadhi. After all, it is an adjunct. It's not essential. It's not swarupa. It's something additional. If it were something fundamental, it could never be removed. If this crystal really were orange, what can you do? You can't make it become clear. But because the orangeness is due to an adjunct, the orangeness can be removed. In the same way, the status of being creator, sustainer, destroyer is an adjunct. It's not essential to Brahman. Brahman is just pure existence and consciousness. So as an adjunct, it can be logically removed. And similarly for you and I, consciousness has an adjunct. Physical adjunct, inside a non-physical adjunct. Since they're adjuncts, they can be removed. And here's the bottom line of Vedanta. When you remove the upadhis, you find out that Ishvara is nothing but Brahman, you are nothing but Atma, and Brahman is nothing but Atma. Atma and Brahman are the same. That is what the Mahavakya Tattvamasi teaches. That's exactly. This is Vedanta. This is the Siddhanta, the ultimate teaching of Vedanta is exactly this. When you remove the upadhi from Ishvara, you have pure Brahman. When you remove the upadhi from Jiva, you have pure Atma. And Atma and Brahman are not two different entities. They are one and the same reality. Now, if you have studied Advaita Vedanta before, this may make some sense. If you're hearing Advaita Vedanta for the first time, this sounds pretty, I guess I used the word before, far out. By the way, do I reveal anything about my generation when I use that language? That was our language of the 1960s, anyway. Far out means it's a concept that seems almost too lofty to grasp. And at first, it will definitely seem too lofty to grasp, which is why we have plenty of opportunities to get it. So we have an opportunity now as we study the Isha Upanishad. After we finish the Isha Upanishad, then we'll study Kaivalya Upanishad. You get another chance. When we finish the Kaivalya Upanishad, then we'll study Mandukya Upanishad. You have another chance. And then if there's more time, this is the idea. We study text after text, and we have an opportunity each time. We get the same teachings in a different context, from a different rishi, the same teachings in a little different form. And by hearing these same teachings from this perspective and that perspective and that perspective, eventually what started off as seeming very lofty and difficult to grasp, eventually it becomes very concrete and very clear. It takes time, but that's where we are headed. All right. You get the idea of Vasya now? Strange word. Should be covered. But now you can understand it's odd. According to Shankara, the way you cover is by removing the upadhi and revealing its essential nature. So by removing the upadhi of the world around us, the upadhi of nama and rupa, name and form, by removing that upadhi, then the world is thereby covered by Ishvara. You realize that there is only Ishvara. All this is Ishvara. Everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. Okay, enough on that first line. Now we can move ahead. Second line. Tena tyaktena bunjitaha. There's a visarga there that drops to two grammar rules. Bunjitaha. Another strange words. And there are also commands. Vasya, you should cover. Bunjitaha, it's a word of command. You should nourish. I'm being very literal. You should nourish. Nourish whom? Yourself. You should take care of yourself. You should sometimes it's translated protect, but it doesn't say protect. It means nurture or care for, sustain. Good. You should sustain yourself. How? Tena, by that. By what? Tyaktena. By tyaga, by renunciation. You should sustain yourself by renunciation. Do you remember my comments about mystical poetry in the first class? You get the sense that these Upanishads, without a commentary or without a good explanation, it's just mystical gobbledygook. Whatever, is that the word? I don't know, some weird English word. Maybe I'll stay with Sanskrit. Something just baffling. So, what does this mean? Tena tyaktena, by renunciation, bhunjitaha, you care for yourself, you nurture yourself, you sustain yourself. In what sense? Well, we've just described the fact that everything in the world exists due to upadhi, external things. And if you want the sandalwood, you get rid of the stinky mold. If you want Brahman, if you want moksha, if you want liberation, how do you gain that liberation? By turning your attention away from the names and forms in the world, and by turning your attention towards the underlying reality because of which that all exists. This is a kind of renunciation. Generally, we think of tyaga. Here the word tyakta means renounced. It means here tyaga, renunciation. And usually our first thought of renunciation is to jump in the Ganga, take some vows, wear this cloth, and get some Swami name. This is our usual concept of sannyasa. But that's really a very surface level understanding of sannyasa. What does it really mean to renounce? We're not talking about a change of lifestyle here. We're talking about a change of attitude, a change of thinking, a very fundamental change of thinking. This is one topic that you've heard me talk about again and again in Bhagavad Gita class, Mahabharata class, and elsewhere. And that topic is the fact that we are all well trained to seek happiness, contentment, peace, and joy outside in the world. And at the same time, we proclaim that the true source of happiness, peace, and joy is within. What's wrong with us? I don't get it. Again and again, we keep saying the true source of contentment and peace is within. And then how do we live our day-to-day lives? Seeking contentment and peace where? And supposing you have some good sadhana practice going, so fine, you spend a half an hour in the morning meditating, which means a half an hour looking for contentment and peace within. Then you get up from your meditation, and what do you spend the next 18 hours doing? Looking for contentment and peace everywhere else. 18 hours looking in all the wrong places, half an hour, and that's if you're doing well. Looking in the right place. This is a fundamental human confusion. And how deeply rooted this confusion is. We're born with this confusion. Shortly after birth, the source of contentment and peace is mother. Mother's breast. Food. That's all we know as an infant. We're born like that. We're wired like that. We're born ignorant. Now, we can understand that for a newborn infant. Now we're grown up. We're so wise now. In our advanced age, we've gained such wisdom. Isn't it amazing that after all these decades of living, that we are still fooled into thinking that the source of contentment and peace is out there in the world. We're lured into that pursuit again and again and again. Granted, we're born like that, we're conditioned like that, but on a spiritual path, as every one of you are, there's been significant effort to come out of that confusion, yet that confusion persists. But bottom line here is, as long as you're seeking contentment and peace outside in the world, you're not doing yourself a favor, are you? In fact, you're persisting in looking in the wrong places. Which is why this verse says, Bunji taha, you should take care of yourself. How? Tyaktena, by giving all that up. By giving up the effort, even by giving up the hope of finding contentment and peace in life. Giving up hope is a big one, because most people have this hope. One day, all my problems are going to be resolved. You know, right now, there are several major problems in your life, and you're thinking, well, in a couple of weeks, I'll get rid of this problem. In a month or two, I'll get rid of that problem. And then it'll take about another year or two, and I'll get rid of that problem. And then when those problems are done, then everything will be so nice. Total fantasy. Utter fantasy. How deluded could we be to think that after resolving these current problems, we will emerge one day on the other side, completely free from problems? Ridiculous. You and I know very well that these problems are followed by more problems. And I don't want to sound too grim, but the problems you face today are followed by other problems which are more difficult. That's it. Our problems will get increasingly hard as our lives progress. Not easier, harder. So, all of this is due to the fact that we are stuck on looking outside in the world for our contentment and peace. And here the Rishi just says, give it up. Come on. You've been searching outside in the world for contentment and peace for how many years? Have you found it yet? So he says, tena tyaktena. Only by renunciation. Now you get the more profound meaning of renunciation? Not lifestyle. Renunciation of the world, yes. So sannyasi renounces conventional life, renounces the world in that sense. But here we're talking about renunciation of the world in a more profound sense. Renunciation of considering the world to be a solution to your problems. Renunciation of considering the world to be the source of contentment and peace. And it's literally turning your back on the world. Not walking away from your home or job or family. That's not what's meant here. But conceptually turning your back on seeking happiness in the world. Tena tyaktena, through that radical act of renunciation, bhunji taha, you should sustain yourself, you should care for yourself. Magridha kasya swat dhanam. Therefore, gridha, to covet, to desire. Gridha, don't covet or desire. Kasya swat dhanam, kasya swat, anyone's dhana, anyone's wealth. Don't covet anyone's wealth. Don't desire anyone's wealth. Not even your own wealth. Kasya swat includes you. Don't desire even your own wealth. Here, that word gridha or desire or covet, we should understand a little bit more fundamentally. Don't depend. Don't depend on anyone or anything, yourself included, to create a life free from problems. Don't think that winning a lottery is going to make all your problems go away. Don't think that even your own efforts will make your problems go away. Because, as we just discussed, as long as we're alive, we're going to continually suffer one problem after another problem after another problem. So therefore, what is the point of looking at any form of dhana, any form of wealth, as a solution to our problems? This is another one of these sticking points. It really seems odd. Just as I mentioned before, we proclaim that the true source of happiness is within, and then we search everywhere else. And similarly, we proclaim money is not happiness, and then we continue to pursue money. What is going on? We say one thing and do something quite different. These simple truths obviously haven't completely gone in. Contentment and peace will never be found out there in the world, no matter how hard you try. You get a few moments, absolutely. You get many moments. But then those moments of contentment and peace will be interrupted by moments of sheer hell and suffering. That's the best you can do. Similarly, imagine, sometimes we think, if only I had more money, then my problems would go away. Do you think billionaires are free from problems? Imagine someone who's a billionaire, Do you think they have problems with their spouse? Sure. Problems with in-laws? Absolutely. Problems with business associates? Many more problems than you have. Because there's more money involved. Problems with the IRS? My gosh. You think you have problems. If you have $1 billion and you're dealing with the IRS, they're really after you. The point I'm making then is that how naive we are to think that money, any kind of wealth, it can solve our problems. So that's why it says, Ma gridha kasyasvadhanam. Don't covet anyone else's wealth, no matter how, or your own wealth for that matter. No matter how much wealth you acquire, it will not give you the lasting peace and contentment that you seek. Now there's a second interpretation here. And Shankara explains it. I'll spare you all the Sanskrit. But the essence of it is this. Everything that exists belongs to whom? If we've already done this vasyam, if we've already covered everything in Ishvara, then we would understand that everything belongs to Ishvara, nothing belongs to me. If you really get it, that everything belongs to Ishvara, everything is Ishvara, then there is no dhana, there is nothing out there to covet. The very act of covering the universe with Ishvara then means there is nothing left for you to covet, nothing left for you to want. There is only one Ishvara. This is an incredibly lofty vision that's spelled out right in the very first verse of this text. Then the next two verses go off in a completely different direction. So for example, tena tyaktena, turning your back on the world, renouncing everything in the world, not necessarily by change of lifestyle, but in terms of attitude, that's an incredibly radical act. So you might ask, what about those who don't renounce the world? What about those who can't, emotionally can't renounce the world? Excuse me. What about them? Well, that's what we'll see in the second verse. So for those who can't, or for whatever reason are unable to take that radical step of turning their backs on the world for the sake of removing the upadhi and seeking contentment and peace within, what about those who are unable to do that? Second verse. Repeat after me. Kurvan he veha karmahani. Kurvan he veha karmahani. Jiji vishet chatagam samaha. Jiji vishet chatagam samaha. Evam tvahi nanyate toho. Evam tvahi nanyate toho. Stina karma Stina karma lipyate narehe. Stina karma lipyate narehe. Kurvan iha. Get this text. Kurvan, doing what? Karma. Doing that karma. Eva, indeed, or alone. Doing karma alone. Karmani, karmas, plural. I mentioned in a prior class that when the word karma comes into Veda, it usually means Vedic rituals. Vaidika karma. And it sure does mean that here. And Shankara also says that's what it means here. Kurvan eva karmani. So living in the world, doing Vedic rituals. If you're a pious, in ancient India, if you're a good pious person, you do daily rituals. That's just what you did. Dvikala Agnihotra, you did Agnihotra rituals morning and evening. That's just what you did. That's what everyone did. So doing your Vedic rituals every day, jijivishate, one should wish to live, jijivishate, one should wish to live how long? Shatam samaha, not bad. One should wish to live shatam, 100 samaha, years. By living a life, living a pious life, doing all these Vedic rituals, you should hope to live 100 years. There's some subtle sarcasm here. The subtle sarcasm. This is, I don't know if these rishis were really meant to be sarcastic, but it looks sarcastic to me. The sarcasm is this. If you do all your Vedic rituals, which you do, right? So this is a best case scenario. If you, with great devotion and religiosity, if you perform every single day of your life all of the prescribed Vedic rituals, jijivishate, shatam samaha, the best you can hope for is to live 100 years. And in fact, I'm not sure that's so good to live 100 years because the last 20 years are probably pretty miserable. You might be better off dead. The point is the best you can hope for. And remember, we're talking about those who could not turn their backs on trying to find happiness and contentment in the world. What is the best they can get? The best they can get is a long life, up to 100 years. And you and I know very well that out of those 100 years, how many of those years will be happy and how many of those years will include suffering? And the answer is each one of those 100 years will include at least some suffering. And chances are the last 20 years are going to be pure suffering, physical suffering anyway. That's a best case scenario. For those who fail to turn their backs on the world, the best they can hope for is 100 years of struggling to find moments of happiness. And that's if they are doing their Vedic rituals. Because if they're not doing their Vedic rituals, then, I remember my guru, Puja Swamiji, Swami Tadatmananda, explaining this. We used to ask him, Swamiji, why is there so much emphasis on doing all these Vedic rituals? Tremendous in scriptures like this and commentaries, so much emphasis. So as young students we were in those days, we asked him, why is there so much emphasis on doing all these Vedic rituals? His answer surprised us. He said, if you're not busy doing these Vedic rituals, you're probably busy doing all kinds of stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Which is to say, you're getting in trouble by doing the wrong things. And that really is what this verse concludes by saying. It says, Evam twayi nanyata itaha asti na karma lipyate nare twayi nare evam, thus twayi, in you, nare, in a person like you, in this way, na karma lipyate, you will not be tainted. Lipyate, you will not be defiled. Karma, and here karma doesn't mean Vedic rituals. Here karma means your papa karmas, your bad actions. Na karma lipyate, you will not be tainted by your bad actions. Twayi nare, for a person like you, Na nanyata itaha, and in no other way. Meaning, if you are on a pious path of doing Vedic rituals, you'll stay on that path doing the right things. But if you stray from that path, not doing your Vedic rituals, then you'll end up doing papa karmas, wrong things. You'll end up living an adharmic life. And if you live an adharmic life, whatever suffering that you would have in life will be multiplied. So the best case is live a pious life. I'll paraphrase the verse. Best case scenario, live a pious life, live 100 years, and struggle. 100 years of struggling, and then you die. That's the best case scenario. And it goes downhill from there. If you don't do rituals, which is to say, if you don't live a pious life, you will be affected by your bad karmas, by your bad actions, and you will suffer even more in this life. Best case scenario is 100 years of rituals. Worst case scenario is 100 years of doing wrong things and suffering that much more. You will suffer more, others will suffer more. Pretty grim. How does that come about? For one who fails to make that radical act of turning your back on what people conventionally say is valuable. Just a few closing comments. We'll wrap up our class here with this verse. Conventional wisdom is conventional. Is it really wise? So conventional wisdom is, if you want to be happy in life, do this, that. Well, most of you have done that. You did this, you did that, you did that, you did that. Have you gotten happy yet? The kind of happiness and peace and uninterrupted contentment, unbroken contentment. Have you found that yet? They say, oh, you have to have a good career, have the right spouse, have the right place to live, and have the right number of children, all this stuff. You do everything right, and then you get to come to the right country, many of you. Honestly, why did you come here? Those of you who came. That's all part of that mindset, that if you do all the right things in life, you can enjoy the perfect life. How ridiculous. You know very well, there is no such thing as a perfect life. Then how did we buy in to this ridiculous conclusion, this conventional wisdom? That's the problem of life. That's why we study Vedanta. That's why we're studying this Isha Upanishad. And we see these extremely powerful words. Tena tyaktena bhunjitaha. You will care for yourself best. You will find the contentment and peace that you seek. How? Tena tyaktena. By renunciation, by going against the conventional wisdom, going against the grain, by, figuratively speaking, turning your back on trying to find contentment through worldly enjoyment, through worldly activities. Doesn't mean to drop out. It doesn't mean to go live in a cave. It does mean a radical shift of perspective. Where do you seek contentment? That's what it comes down to. As long as you seek contentment in the world, best case scenario, 100 years of struggle. Worst case scenario is as bad as you can imagine. On the other hand, you have an opportunity to take this radical step of turning your back, figuratively speaking, turning your back on conventional thinking, on conventional pursuits, on a conventional orientation. Get more, accomplish more. You can turn your back on that and discover the true source of contentment, and that's what the Vedantic pursuit is all about. So very, very wonderful way this Upanishad begins. In the next class, the next verse connects to this. We won't touch upon it, but just to give you a hint, it actually says, one who fails to turn his or her back on the world, one who fails to try to remove the upadhi and seek the true source of contentment within, such a person is called atmaha, a suicide. One who kills, you kill yourself. Kill yourself by failing to pursue what is ultimately important in life. And we'll see that in the next class. We'll conclude with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.